History is a story filled with blank pages. We are about to visit 35 ancient places where the past refuses to give up its secrets. By the end of this journey, you will see the timeline of human civilization in a completely new light. What if a temple was built before farming was invented? Could a massive city simply vanish without a single record of its builders? These are not plot points from a movie. They are real archaeological mysteries waiting for us. Which ancient mystery do you think holds the most startling truth? Our first stop is a windswept hill in southeastern Turkey that shattered a fundamental assumption. For decades, the story was simple. First came farming, then came villages, then came temples and complex society. Göbekli Tepe turned that sequence on its head. Here, massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, were carved and erected into great stone circles around 12,000 years ago. This was not built by settled farmers, but by nomadic hunter-gatherers millennia before the wheel or written language. The sophistication is staggering. The pillars are adorned with exquisite bas-reliefs of animals, foxes, boars, cranes, and serpents frozen in motion. This was clearly a sacred space, a cathedral from the dawn of time. But why build it, and how did scattered bands of people organize such a monumental task? The greatest mystery is its end. Around 10,000 years ago, this incredible site was not destroyed but carefully, deliberately buried under thousands of tons of earth. It was hidden, as if to preserve it for a future that never came to dig it up. Göbekli Tepe whispers a provocative idea. Perhaps religion and collective ritual came first and actually inspired the invention of agriculture and settled life. It is a haunting question mark carved in stone, the very first page of our story, and it suggests we have been reading it wrong all along. The deliberate burial of Göbekli Tepe is a profound act of forgetting, but some monuments refuse to be forgotten, standing sentinel for so long they become part of the landscape itself. On the Giza Plateau, the Great Sphinx stares eternally eastward, its limestone body carved directly from the bedrock. For most of recorded history, we believed we knew its story, that it was built around 4,500 years ago by the pharaoh Khafre to guard his pyramid complex. Yet the Sphinx itself seems to be whispering a different, far older tale. The core of this mystery is written not in hieroglyphs but in stone. Geologists examining the massive enclosure walls around the Sphinx have observed deep, vertical weathering patterns, grooves that look less like wind and sand erosion and more like the effects of heavy, prolonged rainfall. The last time this region experienced such a wet climate was not 4,000, but potentially over 7,000 years ago when the Sahara was a green savanna. If this evidence is correct, the Sphinx could predate dynastic Egypt by millennia. This raises an unsettling question: who could have built it? The traditional narrative offers a face, that of Pharaoh Khafre, but even this is uncertain. The head is disproportionately small for the massive leonine body, leading some to wonder if it was recarved from an earlier, perhaps even non-human, visage by a later pharaoh. Legends, echoed by famous psychics like Edgar Cayce, speak of a hidden hall of records, a secret library of antediluvian knowledge buried deep in a chamber beneath the Sphinx's paws. While no such hall has been found, seismic surveys have indeed detected anomalies, possible cavities, in the bedrock below. The Sphinx's silence is its greatest power. It guards not just a physical plateau, but a potential timeline, a secret history where an advanced culture, now lost to the sands of a much older time, might have left their mark. Its eroded gaze challenges us to reconsider everything we think we know about the cradle of civilization. The Sphinx challenges our timeline, but Stonehenge tests our understanding of Neolithic ambition. This iconic ring of standing stones on England's Salisbury Plain is more than a monument. It is a multi-layered puzzle where each answer reveals a deeper question. The sheer scale of the operation is the first staggering mystery. The largest sarsen stones weigh up to 25 tons and were dragged from quarries 20 miles away. But the smaller inner circle, the blue stones, tell an even more incredible story. Geological analysis proves these stones came from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a journey of over 150 miles across rugged terrain. How did people without the wheel or draft animals accomplish this? Theories range from a heroic glacier that conveniently deposited the stones nearby, which most geologists now dispute, to a monumental effort of rollers, ropes, and rafts along rivers and coastlines. Imagine the community effort, the generations of belief required to move a mountain one stone at a time for a vision only the elders could fully see. The precision of the construction speaks to a profound purpose. The alignment is not accidental. The central axis points to the sunrise of the summer solstice and the sunset of the winter solstice. This was a celestial calendar carved into the earth, a way to mark the turning of the seasons, the rebirth of the sun, and the cycles of life and death. But calling it just an observatory feels incomplete. Human remains found at the site indicate it was also a place of burial and ancestral memory. Some theories suggest the blue stones were believed to have healing properties, turning the circle into a prehistoric hospital of sorts. The truth is likely a tapestry woven from all these threads. The most humbling realization comes from recent discoveries using ground-penetrating radar. Stonehenge was not a lonely outpost. It was the glittering centerpiece of a vast sacred landscape. Just 2 miles away at Durrington Walls, evidence of a massive super-henge was found, a circular enclosure surrounded by a ring of enormous timber posts that would have dwarfed the stone circle itself. This was a place for the living, a bustling village for the builders, while Stonehenge served the dead and the divine. Processional avenues connected these sites, suggesting rituals that moved between worlds. So we are left with a profound scene, not a single mysterious circle, but an entire terrain engineered for ceremony, where communities gathered to celebrate the sky, honor their ancestors, and touch the spiritual realm. The stones are silent, but the landscape around them is still whispering. Stonehenge is a testament to a landscape made sacred, but what if an entire culture chose to write its prayers not on stone, but on the skin of the earth itself? Far to the south, on the high, arid plains of Peru, the Nazca people created a mystery of breathtaking scale. Across nearly 200 square miles of dark desert pavement, they etched a vast gallery of geoglyphs, lines and shapes so enormous they defy comprehension from the ground. A colossal spider with one leg stretching over 150 feet, a hummingbird with wings spread wide, a curious humanoid figure nicknamed the astronaut, and precise geometric shapes that run for miles in perfectly straight lines across the rugged terrain. These were not built with standing stones, but by removing the top layer of dark, sun-baked pebbles to reveal the lighter-colored earth beneath, a technique that has preserved them for over 2,000 years. The precision is staggering. The lines remain arrow-straight over hills and valleys, and the proportions of the animal figures are perfect, even though their creators could never have seen the complete image. This is the central, haunting riddle of the Nazca lines. How did they achieve such accuracy without an aerial view? The most accepted theories are practical yet profound. Simple surveying techniques using stakes and ropes could account for the straight lines. The animal figures might have been scaled up from small sketches using a grid system. But the question of why they did it pulls us into the heart of their worldview. For a people living in one of the driest places on Earth, water was life itself. Many scholars believe the lines were ritual pathways, walked during ceremonies to invoke the deities who controlled rain and fertility. The animal forms likely represented spiritual symbols, the monkey from the lush Amazon perhaps a plea for life-giving water, the spider a symbol of rain in some Andean myths. Some lines align with celestial events like the winter solstice sunset, suggesting an astronomical calendar woven into the desert. Yet the sheer extravagance of the effort, the investment of countless hours to create art only visible to the gods in the sky speaks of a desperate and profound faith. This very quality has fueled more speculative ideas, including the persistent notion that the lines were landing strips or signals for ancient astronauts. While mainstream archaeology finds no evidence for this, the theory persists precisely because the lines feel like a message meant for a viewer high above. They are a testament to human devotion, a permanent prayer etched into the planet, asking for survival from a merciless sky. To stand beside a Nazca line is to feel small, but to see them from above is to witness a civilization shouting its hopes into the vast, silent expanse of the desert, forever waiting for an answer. The Nazca prayed to the sky for survival, but on the most isolated inhabited island on Earth, a society built monuments so heavy they nearly sank their world. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui, is a speck of volcanic rock in the vast Pacific, over 2,000 miles from the nearest continent. Its silence is broken by the presence of nearly 1,000 moai, those brooding stone giants with heavy brows and elongated features, their backs forever turned to the sea. The mystery is not just their creation, but the sheer, staggering scale of it. How did a population that likely never exceeded 15,000 people, with no metal tools or draft animals, carve, transport, and erect statues that average 13 feet tall and weigh 14 tons? The quarry at Rongorongo is a haunting workshop frozen in time, with nearly 400 moai in various stages of completion, some still attached to the bedrock, as if the workers simply walked away one day. For decades, the transport theory involved log rollers and sledges, a process that would have consumed vast quantities of the island's precious palm forests. But a compelling and visually stunning alternative has emerged: that the moai were literally walked to their coastal perches. Using strong ropes, teams could have rocked the statues from side to side, inching them forward in an upright position, a method proven feasible in modern experiments. It is a powerful image, these stone giants seeming to stride across the landscape under the guidance of their makers. Yet, this monumental effort culminated in a shocking act of cultural violence. By the time European explorers arrived in the 18th century, almost every single moai had been deliberately toppled, face down, their sacred platforms shattered. This was not the work of outsiders, but of the islanders themselves, a catastrophic civil war known as the Huri Moai period. The why is a story of ecological and social collapse. The prevailing narrative is a grim cautionary tale that the islanders, in their race to build bigger and more impressive statues, deforested their entire island to make rollers and ropes. Without trees, the soil eroded, crops failed, and the society fractured into warring clans who sought to destroy the very symbols of their rivals' ancestral power. The statues, once conduits of spiritual protection, were pulled down in rage and desperation. Recent excavations have added a profound new layer to their mystery. We have long seen the moai as heads, but careful digging around several toppled figures revealed something astonishing. They have full, elaborate torsos buried underground, covered in intricate petroglyphs. They are not busts, but complete beings anchored deep into the earth. This discovery reframes everything, suggesting a ritual burial, a symbolic return to the earth from which they came. Easter Island stands as a dual mystery, a breathtaking testament to human ingenuity and a sobering monument to its potential limits, where the drive to create the monumental may have written a tragedy in stone. The toppled moai of Easter Island speak of a civilization that consumed itself, but in the highlands of Mexico, an entire metropolis was abandoned so completely that even its true name was lost. Teotihuacan, the name we use today, was given by the Aztecs over 600 years after its fall. They called it the City of the Gods, believing only divine beings could have built such a place. And walking its immense central avenue, the Avenue of the Dead, flanked by the staggering bulk of the Pyramid of the Sun and the graceful Pyramid of the Moon, you understand their awe. This was the New York or London of its time, a sprawling, meticulously planned city that housed perhaps 125,000 souls at its peak around 450 Common Era. Its grid layout is astonishingly precise, its architecture standardized, and its murals depict a society rich with trade and ritual. Yet, the identity of its builders, the language they spoke, the name of their rulers, all of it has vanished without a trace. The Aztecs found only a ghost city, and so did we. The scale of construction is a mystery in itself. The Pyramid of the Sun is a mountain of earth and stone over 200 feet tall, constructed over a natural cave system that was likely considered a sacred portal to the underworld. Building it required a coordinated society of immense power and vision, but no royal tombs or palaces of a known king have ever been found. This was a city that seemed to downplay individual rulers, its art focusing instead on powerful nature deities like the feathered serpent and the storm god. It feels less like an empire built by a single ego and more like a collective, almost utopian project, which makes its end all the more perplexing. Around 550 Common Era, something catastrophic happened. Evidence points to a great fire that ravaged the city's central ceremonial and elite districts. Temples were burned, statues were smashed. This was not a random disaster, but a targeted destruction. Was it a revolt of the lower classes against a ruling elite that finally overreached? Was it an invasion by a rival power from the outside? Or did a prolonged drought, a failure of the crops that fed the massive population, lead to a societal breakdown and internal violence? The charred stones hold the evidence, but the motive remains just out of reach. Perhaps the most tantalizing clue to Teotihuacan's mysterious mind lies not in its grand pyramids, but in a small, unassuming structure near the Pyramid of the Sun. Archaeologists call it the Mica Temple. Beneath its floor, they discovered two massive sheets of mica, each a centimeter thick and spanning several square meters. This mineral is not just rare in the region, it is completely foreign. Geological testing proved this particular mica came from a mine in Brazil, over 2,000 miles away. Transporting these fragile, glass-like sheets across such a vast distance, through jungles and over mountains, represents an investment of effort that is almost unimaginable. And for what? Mica has unique properties. It is an excellent insulator against heat and electricity. In our modern world, we use it in electronics and as a heat shield. This has, of course, fueled speculation about ancient technological knowledge, but the more likely, and in some ways more fascinating, explanation is ritual. Did the Teotihuacanos believe mica could insulate spiritual energy or act as a barrier between worlds in their ceremonies? Was it a symbolic representation of light or water? We simply do not know. The mica sheets are a perfect metaphor for the city itself, a clear, physical fact whose meaning is utterly opaque. They point to a network of trade and belief that spanned a continent, and to priorities so different from our own that we can only stare and wonder. The city's silence is absolute, its grand avenues echoing only with the questions we bring. While Teotihuacan's silence is etched in stone, our next mystery is written in water and vanishing trails of foam. The Bermuda Triangle, a loosely defined region of the Western Atlantic Ocean bounded by points in Miami, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, holds a different kind of power. It is not a ruin we can walk through, but a story we tell, a modern legend of the deep where vessels and aircraft are said to disappear without a trace. The tales are numerous and chilling. There is the infamous loss of Flight 19 in 1945, a squadron of 5 U.S. Navy bombers on a routine training mission. The flight leader was heard reporting that his compasses were not working, that everything looked wrong, even the ocean. Despite clear weather, all 5 planes vanished, and a rescue plane sent to find them also disappeared without a single distress signal. Then there is the USS Cyclops, a massive Navy cargo ship with over 300 souls aboard, which sailed into the area in 1918 and was never seen again, one of the largest non-combat losses of life in U.S. naval history. These stories, amplified by books and documentaries, paint a picture of a zone where the normal laws of nature are suspended. Yet, when investigators and scientists look closely, the supernatural fog often lifts to reveal more ordinary, though no less deadly, forces. The area is one of the most heavily traveled shipping lanes and flight paths in the world. Statistically, given the volume of traffic and the region's notorious weather, some losses are tragically inevitable. The Gulf Stream flows directly through it, a powerful, warm current that can quickly erase debris and evidence from a sinking. The ocean floor here is also one of the deepest in the world, with trenches that plunge down thousands of feet, making recovery nearly impossible. Practical explanations are compelling: sudden, catastrophic rogue waves that can reach over 100 feet in height, capable of breaking a ship in two before any mayday call is sent. There is also the fascinating theory of methane hydrate eruptions. Vast deposits of this frozen gas lie on the seafloor, and if a sudden landslide or temperature change releases it, a massive bubble of methane can rise to the surface. This would dramatically decrease the density of the water, causing a ship to lose buoyancy and sink almost instantly. Furthermore, the bubbles rising into the air could disrupt engine combustion or create turbulence, posing a grave risk to low-flying aircraft. Compass anomalies are a documented fact here, as this is one of the few places on Earth where true north and magnetic north align, which can cause navigational confusion for the unprepared. So why, in the face of such rational theories, does the legend persist with such strength? The answer lies less in the ocean and more in the human mind. The Bermuda Triangle represents the ultimate mystery of the unknown, a blank space on our modern map where our technology and logic are said to fail. In an age where we can track a package across the globe in real time, the idea that something as large as a ship or a plane can simply vanish without explanation is profoundly unsettling. It taps into a primal fear of the deep, the vast and indifferent sea that still holds secrets we cannot plumb. The stories provide a narrative for the terrifying randomness of disaster, offering a location, a reason, a mysterious agency, rather than the cold chaos of a sudden storm or mechanical failure. It becomes a modern myth, a place where the map ends and our imagination begins to write its own rules. The enduring power of the triangle is not about proving ghosts or alien abductions, but about our need to give a name and a face to the deep, dark uncertainties that still surround us. The deep sea holds modern legends, but one ancient story has cast the longest shadow of all. The tale of Atlantis begins not with an archaeologist's shovel, but with a philosopher's pen. In two of his dialogues, written around 360 years before the Common Era, Plato describes a powerful island kingdom beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we call the Strait of Gibraltar. He paints a picture of a utopian society, advanced in technology, governance, and art, a naval power that ruled over parts of Europe and Africa. According to the story, this great civilization fell out of favor with the gods due to its growing arrogance and moral decay. In a single terrible day and night of earthquakes and floods, the entire island was swallowed by the sea, vanishing forever. From the moment Plato wrote those words, the question has haunted us: was this a philosophical fable, a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris, or was he recording a distorted memory of a real catastrophic event? The sheer detail in his account is what fuels the endless search. He gives dimensions for the city's concentric rings of water and land, describes temples plated in precious metals, and even provides a timeline, saying the catastrophe occurred 9,000 years before his own time. This specificity makes it feel like more than just a myth, and so the hunt began. Candidates for the lost island are proposed with passionate regularity. One of the most compelling is the volcanic island of Thera, modern Santorini. Around 1600 years before the Common Era, a cataclysmic eruption, one of the largest in human history, obliterated the sophisticated Minoan settlement there and sent tsunamis crashing across the Mediterranean. This event certainly destroyed an advanced civilization and could have inspired tales of a kingdom consumed by the sea. Others looked to the Azores in the mid-Atlantic, suggesting a landmass there sank beneath the waves. Some even point to Antarctica, theorizing it was once ice-free and inhabited. Every few years, a new sonar scan or underwater formation reignites the fervor. Off the coast of Japan, the Yonaguni Monument presents a stark example. These massive, terraced stone structures beneath the waves have sharp angles and what appear to be steps and platforms. Are they the natural result of tectonic activity and ocean erosion, or the carved ruins of a sunken city? Mainstream geologists largely favor the natural explanation, but the visual resemblance to megalithic sites on land is uncanny, keeping the debate alive. This is the true power of Atlantis. It has transcended archaeology to become a cultural archetype. It represents our collective nostalgia for a golden age, a time of perfect knowledge and peace that was lost through human folly. It speaks to a deep-seated fear that our own civilization, for all its advances, could also overreach and face a sudden, dramatic collapse. Every time we discover evidence of a real sunken settlement, like Pavloptri off Greece or Dwarka off India, the ghost of Atlantis stirs. We are not just looking for ruins, we are searching for a mirror, a story that explains both the heights of human achievement and the depths of our fragility. The lost city may never be found on any map because perhaps its true location is in the landscape of our imagination, a permanent reminder of what might have been and a warning of what could be. Atlantis is a legend written on water, but in a library vault at Yale University, there exists a mystery made of parchment and ink. The Voynich Manuscript is a physical object you could hold in your hands, a codex dating to the early 15th century, filled with over 200 pages of dense, curling text in a script that has never been seen anywhere else on Earth. It is not just the writing that defies understanding, it is the entire world depicted within. The pages are illustrated with bizarre, otherworldly plants, their roots and leaves forming impossible hybrids that no botanist can identify. There are astrological charts featuring unfamiliar constellations, and perhaps most strangely, intricate diagrams of what appear to be biological or balneological systems, showing nude women bathing in interconnected green tubes and pools of liquid. This is not a simple diary or a known herbal guide. It is a visual and linguistic universe that operates by rules we cannot grasp. For over a century, this book has been a siren song for the world's greatest cryptographers, from intelligence agencies that cracked enemy codes in the world wars to modern supercomputers running sophisticated artificial intelligence algorithms. All have failed. The text exhibits statistical patterns consistent with a real language. It is not random gibberish, yet it matches no known linguistic family on the planet. This profound inaccessibility is what makes it so maddening and captivating. Here is a book, a vessel specifically designed to convey information, and that information is permanently locked away. The theories about its origin are as varied as its strange illustrations. Could it be an incredibly elaborate and expensive hoax from the Renaissance, created to fool a wealthy patron? The cost and effort involved make this seem unlikely for a mere prank. Perhaps it is written in a constructed language or a very rare vernacular that died out without a trace. Some propose it is a coded treatise on herbal medicine or alchemy, its secrets protected from the uninitiated. The most haunting possibility is that it represents a genuine but completely lost strand of human knowledge or belief, a glimpse into a reality that was perceived so differently that we lack the very framework to comprehend it. The women in the green tubes are not bathing for leisure. They might be part of a diagram for a spiritual transformation, a medieval concept of bodily humors, or something else we have no name for. To open the Voynich Manuscript is to stare directly into the abyss of lost history. to hold proof that there are thoughts, systems, and perhaps entire ways of seeing the world that have vanished without a whisper, leaving behind only this beautiful, impenetrable artifact. It is a silence more profound than any ruined city, because it is a silence filled with words we can see but will never hear. The Voynich Manuscript is a locked book of lost thoughts, but from the silent depths of the sea, the waves once gave up a machine. In the spring of 1901, sponge divers off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera were seeking a different treasure when they stumbled upon a Roman-era shipwreck. Among the shattered marble statues and corroded coins, they recovered a lump of green, calcified bronze about the size of a shoebox. For decades, it sat in a museum drawer, considered a curious but unremarkable navigational instrument. Then, in the 1950s, a scientist using early X-ray technology peered inside. What he saw would rewrite history. The green lump was not a single object, but a sophisticated clockwork assembly of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, precisely cut and mounted within a wooden frame. This was the Antikythera Mechanism, a 2,000-year-old analog computer. The complexity of its design is breathtaking. Inscriptions on its casing and fragments of its gears reveal its purpose. It was a portable cosmos in a box. By turning a hand crank on the side, the user could advance a series of dials to predict the positions of the Sun, the Moon, and the 5 known planets with remarkable accuracy. It could forecast lunar and solar eclipses, and even track the 4-year cycle of the Panhellenic Games, the ancient Olympic circuit. This was not a toy for the rich, it was a serious scientific instrument, a manifestation of celestial knowledge made mechanical. The engineering is so precise that researchers believe it used a complex differential gear, a technology previously thought to have been invented in the 16th century. For over 1,000 years after its creation, nothing of comparable mechanical sophistication would appear in the European historical record. This single device shatters our timeline of technological progress. It forces a profound and unsettling question: who built this? The craftsmanship and the advanced astronomical theories it encodes point to the brilliant Hellenistic world that flourished after Alexander the Great. Thinkers in centers like Alexandria, Rhodes, or Syracuse possessed knowledge of mathematics and mechanics that we only glimpse through fragments. The genius Archimedes, who designed incredible war machines and calculated pi, is known to have built a planetarium, a moving model of the heavens. Could the Antikythera Mechanism be a descendant of that lost tradition? Its very existence suggests a golden age of geared science, a path of technological development that was open and then abruptly closed. The knowledge did not slowly fade, it was catastrophically erased. The Roman ship carrying it was likely a loot vessel, transporting plunder from the Greek East to Rome for a triumphal parade. Its sinking preserved the mechanism but also symbolizes the larger collapse as political upheaval, library burnings, and the shifting focus of empires caused this delicate thread of engineering genius to snap. The mechanism is not just a wonder, it is a ghost. It whispers that the ancient world may have been on the cusp of a mechanical revolution that never was. It forces us to wonder what other marvels, what other libraries of geared wisdom still lie buried in the silt of the Mediterranean, their secrets dissolved by saltwater and time. The Antikythera Mechanism reveals a lost world of precision, but some ancient mysteries are defined by their raw, enigmatic presence. On the windswept highlands of central Laos, the landscape is dotted with giants' work. Thousands of massive stone jars, some standing over 9 feet tall and weighing several tons, lie scattered across the Xiang Quang Plateau in over 90 separate sites. Carved from sandstone and conglomerate rock during the Southeast Asian Iron Age, between 500 before Common Era and 500 Common Era, these silent vessels have guarded their secret for 2 millennia. Their form is simple, yet their scale is staggering. Who moved these multi-ton jars and for what possible purpose? The most persistent theory is a Sacsayhuamán, that they served as burial urns. Excavations have indeed uncovered human remains, cremated bone, and burial goods like beads and ceramics around some of the jars. This suggests they were part of a complex mortuary practice where bodies were placed inside to decompose before the bones were later collected for a secondary burial. But not every jar contains such evidence, leaving the door open to other possibilities. Could they have been used for practical storage, holding monsoon rainwater for travelers along a forgotten trade route, or fermenting vast quantities of rice wine for communal feasts? This practical idea finds an echo in local legend, which tells of a race of giants, the Kunchim, who created the jars to brew legendary amounts of alcohol to celebrate a great military victory. The story transforms the jars from mere containers into monuments of celebration, stone trophies marking a triumph so grand it required immortalizing in rock. The true answer may weave all these threads together, with the jars serving different roles across centuries, first as vessels for the living, then as tombs for the dead, and finally as monuments for ancestors. Today, a more modern and deadly layer shrouds the mystery. The region was heavily bombed during the Vietnam War era, leaving vast areas littered with unexploded ordnance. This tragic legacy has rendered large sections of the plain inaccessible and too dangerous for systematic archaeological study. The very earth that holds the clues is booby-trapped, keeping the jar's secrets locked away as effectively as any ancient curse. They stand as silent sentinels in a field of hidden peril, a reminder that sometimes the past is guarded not by time alone, but by the painful echoes of more recent history. The silent jars of Laos hold an ancient purpose, but a monument built in our own lifetime spoke with a clear, unsettling voice. In 1980, in a quiet field in Elbert County, Georgia, a set of massive granite slabs appeared almost overnight. Standing nearly 20 feet tall, the Georgia guidestones were engraved with 10 directives for humanity, translated into 8 of the world's major languages. The messages were stark and provocative, calling for maintaining humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, guiding reproduction wisely, unifying humanity with a living new language, and ruling passion and faith with tempered reason. The monument was capped with a stone that functioned as an astronomical calendar, aligning with the Sun and North Star. Its anonymous sponsors, working through a local banker, identified themselves only as a small group of Americans who believed in reason and wished to remain anonymous forever. They used the pseudonym R.C. Christian, a name many interpret as a nod to the legendary founder of the Rosicrucian order, Christian Rosencreuz, a secret society focused on esoteric wisdom. This deliberate anonymity was the core of the mystery from the very beginning. Were they benign futurists, earnest environmentalists, and humanists attempting to plant a seed for a post-crisis society? Or did the stones represent something more ominous, a blueprint for a controlled, depopulated New World Order, as many conspiracy theorists came to believe? The guidelines, particularly the first calling for a global population of under 500 million, which would require a reduction of over 90% of today's numbers, fueled intense debate and fear. For over 4 decades, the Guidestones stood as a polarizing landmark, a physical manifesto that some saw as a warning and others as a threat. Then, in July of 2022, the mystery reached a violent climax. Part of the monument was severely damaged in an explosion, and the remainder was demolished and hauled away for safety days later. The act of destruction was as enigmatic as the creation. While a suspect was later identified, the ultimate motives behind the bombing remain murky, wrapped in the same shadows that cloaked R.C. Christian. The Guidestones are gone now, but their brief, dramatic existence forces a haunting question. What does it mean when a message is delivered without a messenger? The granite is silent, the field is empty, but the debate it ignited about who gets to inscribe instructions for the future, and for whom, echoes louder than ever. The Guidestone's silent granite is gone, but far beneath the waves off Japan's westernmost island, another set of stones speaks a language we cannot yet translate. Submerged just 80 feet below the surface off Yonaguni Island lies a formation that seems to defy nature. From above, it appears as a vast five-tiered pyramid with sharp 90-degree angles, straight walls that run for over 160 feet, and what look like perfectly carved staircases ascending its sides. At its summit rests a flat platform, and nearby, a distinct, isolated rock bears an uncanny resemblance to a giant stone turtle. The moment you see it, the mind rebels. This looks like the ruins of a ceremonial complex, a sunken city reclaimed by the sea. The debate it ignited is a perfect clash between two ways of seeing. Mainstream geologists, led by the late Professor Masaki Kimura, who studied it for decades, point to the bedrock itself. The formation is made of sandstone, a sedimentary rock that naturally fractures along flat plains. The powerful tidal currents in this region, they argue, have simply eroded the stone along these natural joints, creating the illusion of architecture. They see a spectacular but entirely natural geological feature, yet the anomalies are persistent and deeply puzzling. There are what appear to be two perfectly round holes about 2 feet deep, side by side on one terrace, a feature incredibly difficult to explain through random erosion. The straight walls and sharp corners are clustered in one specific area, while the surrounding seabed shows the expected, rounded, natural formations. Most compelling to proponents of a human origin is the turtle-shaped platform, an isolated block with a form so specific and symmetrical it feels intentionally sculpted. If even a part of this is man-made, the implications are staggering. Sea level data tells us this area was last above water around 10,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. That would place its construction in a prehistoric epoch, pushing back the timeline for complex monumental architecture in the Pacific by millennia. Who could have built it? Could it be a remnant of the lost German culture, a prehistoric people of Japan known for their sophisticated pottery and rituals, but not for underwater pyramids? Or does it point to a broader, now vanished Pacific civilization, a potential real-world counterpart to the legend of Mu or a Pacific branch of the Atlantis story? The Yonaguni monument forces us to confront a fundamental question about our past. Where does the remarkable work of nature end, and where does the hand of ancient humanity begin? It is a riddle written in stone, blurred by millennia of currents, waiting for a key we have not yet found. The sea may blur the line between nature and architecture, but on the dry plains of modern-day Pakistan, an ancient city presents a scene of undeniable human tragedy. Mohenjo-Daro, one of the great capitals of the Indus Valley civilization, was a marvel of the Bronze Age. Its streets were laid out in a precise grid, its homes featured advanced drainage systems, and its citizens lived in what appears to have been a remarkably egalitarian and peaceful society for centuries. Then, around 1,900 years before the Common Era, something terrible happened. The city died, not with a slow whimper of decline, but in what looks like a single, horrifying moment. Archaeologists digging in the 1920s made a chilling discovery. They unearthed human skeletons scattered in the streets, inside houses, and even huddled in groups. One poignant group of 9 skeletons was found in a room, including a child. Some of the bones showed signs of violent trauma. The scene suggested a sudden, catastrophic event that struck people down where they stood or tried to hide. For a long time, this was labeled the Mohenjo-Daro massacre, the evidence of a brutal invasion that wiped out the city. Yet, as researchers looked closer, the story grew more complicated and more mysterious. Where were the weapons? There is no trove of foreign arrowheads, no shattered gates from a siege, no evidence of a conquering army taking possession of the city. The bodies were never buried, but there are also no mass graves. They simply lay where they fell, and the city was abandoned. this absence of an invader forces us to consider other, even more frightening possibilities. Could a natural disaster have struck with such sudden fury? The city sits near the mighty Indus River. A catastrophic flood of biblical proportions, perhaps triggered by a massive monsoon or an earthquake that changed the river's course, could have drowned the city without warning. But flooding typically leaves layers of silt, and while some evidence of flooding exists at Mohenjo-Daro, it does not conclusively explain the pattern of the bodies. Another theory points to a sudden, devastating raid by nomadic tribes from the hills who attacked, killed, and then simply melted back into the landscape, leaving no permanent mark. This fits the evidence of violence but still feels incomplete for a city of such size and sophistication. Then there is the most controversial idea of all, one that emerges from the intersection of ancient text and modern imagination. Ancient Indian epics like the Mahabharata describe fantastical weapons called astras. Some of these descriptions, when read today, sound unnervingly familiar. They speak of a single projectile charged with the power of the universe, an iron thunderbolt that became a gigantic messenger of death. It is said to reduce entire cities to ashes, cause hair and nails to fall out, and contaminate food and water for generations. To some, this reads like a harrowing account of radiation sickness and nuclear fallout. Could Mohenjo-Daro be the physical evidence of such an event? Fringe theorists point to anecdotal claims of higher than normal background radiation at the site and to vitrified stone fused into glass by extreme heat, though mainstream archaeologists attribute any such findings to later kilns or natural fires. Scholars universally dismiss the ancient atomic war theory as a dramatic misinterpretation, a case of reading modern fears back into poetic metaphor. Yet, its persistence in mystery lore speaks to the profound unease the site evokes. Mohenjo-Daro presents us with a real archaeological crime scene, but one where the weapon is missing. The truth likely lies in a more mundane but no less devastating combination of events. Perhaps a major flood or earthquake crippled the city, weakening its social order, which was then finished off by internal strife or a quick raid. The scattered skeletons may be the final chapter of a complex collapse, a society that succumbed to multiple pressures at once. The city's silent streets force us to confront a difficult truth. Sometimes the end of a civilization leaves behind not a clear villain, but a haunting, unanswered question mark. Mohenjo-Daro's silent streets leave us with a crime scene lacking a weapon, but high in the Andes, another civilization left behind a fortress that is its own evidence of impossible skill. The walls of Sacsayhuamán, looming above the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, are not just ruins, they are a statement carved in granite. To stand before them is to feel a profound sense of dislocation, as if the very laws of physics were different when they were built. The scale is the first shock. Massive blocks of limestone, some towering over 27 feet tall and weighing more than 100 tons, are stacked in 3 zigzagging tiers that stretch for hundreds of feet. But it is the precision that truly defies belief. These are not simple rectangles, they are complex polygonal shapes, each stone a unique, interlocking puzzle piece with as many as 12 angles. They are fitted together so seamlessly that for centuries the legend has held that you cannot slip a razor blade or even a single piece of paper between them. And all of this was accomplished without a single drop of mortar, without iron tools, and without the wheel. So how was it done? The quarry itself is a clue, located over a mile away and at a higher elevation. The Incas likely used a combination of wooden rollers, levers, and earthen ramps to move these behemoths, a staggering feat of communal labor and logistics. But the cutting and fitting is the deeper mystery. The prevailing theory involves a patient, brilliant process of trial and error. Stonemasons would have painstakingly shaped a block in the quarry, then used a system of ropes and pivots to lower it into place next to its neighbor. They would then trace the contours of the lower stone onto the new one, lift it again, and carve away the rock to achieve a perfect match, repeating this process until the fit was flawless. This explains the intricate, almost organic joints, but it represents an almost unimaginable investment of time and skill. This has led to more speculative ideas, including a fascinating local legend. Some suggest the Incas possessed knowledge of a plant-based solvent, a juice or sap from a now-forgotten Andean species that could temporarily soften the hard granite, allowing them to mold the stones like clay before they hardened again. While no archaeological evidence supports this, the idea persists because the alternative, achieving such perfection through sheer, relentless handwork with stone and bronze tools, feels almost superhuman. The design itself holds another layer of meaning. From above, the zigzagging walls are said to form the teeth of a giant puma, the sacred animal that symbolized the city of Cusco, whose body was outlined by the city's layout below. Sacsayhuamán was not merely a fortress, it was the head of the sacred Puma, a spiritual guardian carved into the mountain. This fusion of monumental engineering and sacred symbolism is the true heart of the mystery. The walls were not just built to withstand armies, but to embody an entire worldview, a testament to a civilization that could move mountains, both literally and spiritually, to align their world with the divine. The seamless walls of Sacsayhuamán stand as a testament to communal effort and lost technique. But one man in 20th century Florida built his own private fortress of stone entirely alone. The Coral Castle in Homestead is a sprawling complex of massive oolite limestone sculptures, a garden of monoliths that includes a 9-ton gate that a child can push open with a single finger, a Polaris telescope accurate to 1/4 of an inch, and rocking chairs carved from solid rock. The true weight of this place is not just in its stones, but in its origin story. Every single piece of it, over 1,100 tons of rock, was quarried, shaped, transported, and erected by one man, Edward Līdzkalnis. He was a Latvian immigrant, standing just 5 feet tall and weighing barely 100 pounds. From 1923 to 1951, working almost exclusively at night by lantern light, he single-handedly created this monument. And in all that time, no one ever witnessed how he moved the heaviest blocks, some weighing 30 tons. When curious neighbors asked, he would only smile and say he understood the laws of weight and leverage, claiming to have discovered the secret that built the pyramids. The methods he described were deceptively simple, involving tripods, chains, and homemade tools fashioned from old car parts. Yet, engineers who have studied his work are often left scratching their heads. The precision is one thing, but the pure physics of a lone man maneuvering multi-ton stones with such basic equipment defies easy explanation. This has fueled endless speculation. Did Līdzkalnis somehow rediscover an ancient principle of anti-gravity or magnetic levitation, a lost science hinted at in pyramid lore? Or was he simply a mechanical genius who understood leverage and balance in a way that has eluded everyone else? The motivation for this lifelong labor adds a poignant layer to the mystery. Local legend holds he built it all for his lost love, a woman in Latvia named Agnes who jilted him just before their wedding. The castle was to be his proof of devotion, a kingdom he could offer her. He never stopped calling it Rock Gate Park after her family's farm. He took his exact methods to the grave, and though his tools remain, they are silent. The Coral Castle is not a relic of a forgotten civilization, but a modern enigma. It stands as a haunting monument to human obsession, a puzzle that suggests profound secrets might still hide not in distant deserts, but in the quiet tenacity of a single, determined mind. The solitary obsession of Coral Castle finds its polar opposite in a hidden world of collective survival. Deep beneath the fairy tale landscape of Cappadocia, Turkey, where wind-carved stone spires dot the horizon, lies a secret that turns the very ground underfoot into an illusion. The Derinkuyu underground city is not a cave or a simple shelter. It is a vertical metropolis carved into the soft, malleable volcanic rock, a labyrinth that plunges over 280 feet down through 18 distinct levels. This was not a temporary hideout, but a fully functional city designed to sustain an entire population. Archaeologists estimate that at its peak, Derinkuyu could have housed up to 20,000 people, along with their livestock, food stores, and places of worship for months at a time. To walk its narrow, sloping passageways today is to step into a monument of pure necessity. The engineering is as sophisticated as it is pragmatic. A network of over 50 ventilation shafts, some stretching all the way to the surface, provided fresh air to even the deepest chambers, a lifeline that prevented suffocation and allowed for fires to be lit. Deep wells tapped into the groundwater, ensuring a secure supply independent of the world above. There were stables for animals, wine and oil presses, kitchens, communal rooms, and even chapels with carved crosses on the walls. Massive circular stone doors weighing up to half a ton could be rolled across key passageways from the inside, sealing entire sections against intruders. This was a world designed for lockdown. The question of who built Derinkuyu and when is layered like the city itself. The soft rock, known as tuff, made such excavation possible with simple hand tools, meaning it could have been started millennia ago. Some theories suggest early Hittites might have begun the excavations over 3,000 years ago, but the city we see today was almost certainly expanded and perfected by early Christians, particularly during the Byzantine era, as a refuge from Arab raids and later from Mongol invasions. It speaks to a society living under a perpetual shadow, where the threat of violence from the surface world was a constant feature of life. Their response was not to build walls upward, but to dig a civilization downward, investing generations of labor into creating a sanctuary in the earth's embrace. The scale is a humbling testament to communal will, a shared project of survival that required meticulous planning, social cohesion, and a profound understanding of underground engineering. Derinkuyu is not alone. Over 200 smaller underground complexes are known in Cappadocia, connected by miles of tunnels. This raises a haunting possibility that the rolling hills of Anatolia are not solid ground, but a vast, porous cheese of forgotten cities, a hidden second world lying in wait just beneath the feet of the present. How many other doorways remain sealed? How many other ventilation shafts are lost, holding the silent breath of histories we have yet to uncover? Derinkuyu's hidden world was carved from soft volcanic rock, but the stones at Baalbek were moved in defiance of physics itself. In Lebanon's Bekaa Valley, the Roman Temple of Jupiter stands as a testament to imperial might, its towering columns reaching for the sky. Yet the true wonder lies not in what stands above, but in the foundation upon which it is built. The temple platform is constructed from the largest carved stones ever used by human hands, known as the trilithon, 3 colossal blocks, each measuring around 64 feet long, 14 feet high, and 12 feet wide, and weighing an estimated 800 tons, form a single, seamless tier. To put that in perspective, each stone equals the mass of 2 fully loaded jumbo jets. They were quarried over half a mile away, transported across a gentle rise, and then lifted over 20 feet into position with a precision that leaves modern engineers in awe. Even the Romans, masters of logistics and engineering, left no record of how this was accomplished. Their known methods using cranes, winches, and vast teams of men and animals seem barely adequate for a task of this magnitude. The mystery deepens in a nearby quarry where an even more monstrous block lies abandoned, partially detached from the bedrock. This is the stone of the pregnant woman, a megalith estimated to weigh 1,650 tons. It is a third larger than any of the trilithon stones, a project so ambitious it was perhaps abandoned as impossible even by the builders of this place. This staggering scale fuels a provocative question. Did the Romans really build this foundation, or did they find it? Some scholars point to stylistic clues and historical accounts suggesting the Romans constructed their temple atop a far older, pre-existing sacred platform. Could an earlier civilization, one lost to history, have possessed the knowledge and capability to move mountains of stone? The Phoenicians, master traders and builders of the region, are one candidate, but even their known achievements do not explain the trilithon. Others look to more speculative ideas, from forgotten technologies involving sound or anti-gravity to the influence of mythical giants. Baalbek is a palimpsest of power, where one civilization's temple sits upon the ghost of another's impossible achievement, a silent challenge carved in limestone that asks us just how much we have forgotten about the builders of the ancient world. The weight of Baalbek stone speaks of a civilization's power, but in the misty fields of Brittany, a different kind of monument whispers of a society's mind. The Karnak stones are not a single circle or a solitary monolith, they are an army. Over 3,000 prehistoric standing stones, mostly local granite, were erected in dense, parallel rows that stretch for nearly 3 miles across the French countryside. This is not a haphazard collection. It is a meticulously organized landscape, with the main alignments at Meynek, Kermario, and Koleskon comprising thousands of menhirs placed with a rhythm that feels both mathematical and mystical. These stones were raised by Neolithic people around 4,500 years before the Common Era, a time when the Great Pyramids of Egypt were still 1,000 years in the future. To walk among them today is to wander through a silent, stony forest, where every path seems to lead deeper into a question. The precision of their placement is the first clue to a profound purpose. The rows are remarkably straight, running from northeast to southwest, and the stones generally decrease in height along the lines. This deliberate gradation is not random. It suggests an intentional design, a visual effect meant to be experienced by moving through the space. So what was this vast, open-air temple meant to do? The most compelling theory casts it as a colossal astronomical observatory. Some researchers have proposed that specific sightlines between the stones could have been used to track the movements of the sun and moon, marking solstices and equinoxes with dramatic accuracy. In this view, the alignments were a calendar carved into the earth, a tool for a farming society to predict the seasons essential for planting and harvest. Another, more haunting idea suggests the stones acted as a seismic predictor. The local granite contains quartz, a mineral that can generate small electrical charges under pressure, a phenomenon known as piezoelectricity. Could the Neolithic builders have noticed that these stones emitted strange lights or sounds, what we might call earthquake lights, before tremors shook the land? Did they erect this field as an early warning system, a stone network to sense the restless earth? Then there is the spiritual interpretation that the rows are a physical representation of a deity, perhaps a serpent or a pathway for the dead, leading from the realm of the living to the world of ancestors. This idea finds an echo in local legend, which offers a story as vivid as any archaeological theory. It is said that the stones are a Roman legion, caught in the act of pursuing the wizard Merlin and turned to stone by his magic, frozen forever in their marching ranks. This tale, born centuries after the stones were raised, reveals how later peoples struggled to explain the inexplicable, attributing such a monumental feat to the supernatural. The sheer effort involved is perhaps the greatest mystery of all. Quarrying, transporting, and erecting thousands of multi-ton stones required generations of coordinated labor. This was not the work of a small village, but of a complex, motivated society with a shared vision so powerful it compelled them to reshape their world on a staggering scale. That vision, that core belief that made this Herculean effort not just worthwhile but essential, is what has been utterly lost to time. The Karnak stones stand not as ruins but as a perfect and permanent question. They are the physical grammar of a language we no longer speak, a silent forest where every stone is a word waiting for a meaning. While the Karnak stones form a silent army, another great stone city was built not for ceremony but for commerce and power. The Great Zimbabwe Ruins rise from the savanna of southern Africa, a sprawling complex of granite walls and towers that gave an entire modern nation its name. Zimbabwe, in the Shona language, means great stone houses, and here they stand, a testament to a sophisticated kingdom that flourished between the 11th and 15th centuries. This was the capital of a wealthy state that mastered trade, its merchants funneling vast quantities of gold, ivory, and copper to ports on the Swahili coast, connecting the African interior to the wider Indian Ocean world. The grandeur of the site is undeniable, with its signature dry stone walls, built without mortar, rising in elegant, curving patterns and featuring the enigmatic conical tower that still stands within the largest enclosure. For centuries, however, the greatest mystery surrounding Great Zimbabwe was one of prejudice, not archaeology. When European colonizers encountered these ruins in the late 19th century, they simply could not or would not believe that indigenous Africans had created such an advanced civilization. Instead, they invented fanciful origins, attributing the city to the biblical Queen of Sheba, to Phoenician traders, or to other foreign visitors. This racist denial was a deliberate act of historical theft, an attempt to strip a continent of its own magnificent past. It created a manufactured mystery where none should have existed, delaying true understanding for generations. Today, the real enigmas that occupy archaeologists are far more compelling. They seek to understand the full scope of this kingdom's political and economic reach. How did it administer such a vast trade network? What was the nature of its society and the exact role of its rulers, whose identities are still being pieced together from the archaeological record? And perhaps the most poignant question, why was this thriving capital eventually abandoned by the mid-15th century? The answers point not to invasion or catastrophe, but to complex internal shifts. The most likely explanation involves environmental strain. The sheer population concentrated at Great Zimbabwe, perhaps reaching 18,000 people, would have placed immense pressure on local resources, leading to deforestation and the depletion of soil and game. The ruling elite may have simply moved their capital to a new, more sustainable location, following the patterns of power and resources that had always defined their kingdom. The story of Great Zimbabwe is thus a dual reclamation, first of its history from colonial myth, and now of its nuanced story from simplistic tales of collapse. It stands as a powerful reminder that some of history's deepest mysteries are not about lost technologies or alien visitors, but about the sophisticated and entirely human rhythms of rise, adaptation, and change. The denial of Great Zimbabwe's origins created a mystery from prejudice, but in China, a discovery was made that defies explanation through sheer, silent absence. In 1992, farmers in Zhejiang province were draining ponds in their village when they uncovered something impossible. The water revealed not mud, but a vast, dark opening into the earth. What they found were the Longyu Caves, a series of 24 colossal, hand-carved subterranean halls. Stepping inside is like entering the belly of a stone giant. Each cavern is immense, some spanning thousands of square meters with ceilings soaring over 100 feet high. The walls and ceilings are not rough-hewn, but finished with a stunning, almost industrial precision. From one end to the other, they are covered in uniform, parallel chisel marks, a relentless pattern of lines that curve and sweep across the stone in a mesmerizing, rhythmic wave. These are not the marks of frantic digging, but of deliberate, systematic artistry. Massive pillars, left standing by the original diggers to support the unimaginable weight above, are carved with equal care, integral parts of the design. In some chambers, intricate carvings of horses, fish, and birds appear on the walls, and carefully shaped pools dot the floors. The sophistication is breathtaking, but the context is utterly missing. Radiocarbon dating suggests they were carved at least 2,000 years ago, around the time of the Han Dynasty, a period of meticulous record-keeping. Yet, in all of China's vast historical archives, there is not a single character, not one scroll, that mentions the construction of these caves. This silence is the first deafening mystery. A project of this scale would have been a monumental state endeavor. The math alone is staggering. Experts estimate that nearly 1 million cubic meters of stone were excavated. That is enough rock to build a small mountain, yet there is no trace of this mountain, no rubble piles, no nearby construction using this distinctive sandstone, no quarry waste. The stone simply vanished as if it were carried away grain by grain. So what was this titanic effort for? The theories are as varied as the chisel marks. Could they have been secret imperial tombs or ceremonial spaces for rituals lost to time? The carvings of animals might support a spiritual purpose. Perhaps they were mining caverns dug for a special type of stone, but the artistic finish makes a purely industrial purpose seem unlikely. Others suggest they were hidden storage facilities for a royal treasury or granaries, a bunker complex carved to protect a kingdom's wealth. Each idea feels plausible, yet each crashes against the same wall of silence. The Longyu Caves are a monument to a vanished intention. They represent a collective act of labor so vast it should have echoed through history, but instead it fell into a perfect, profound silence. It is as if an entire chapter of the past was deliberately erased, leaving behind only this magnificent, empty space and the ghost of a million unanswered strikes from a hammer and chisel. The silent, empty halls of Longyu Caves speak of a vanished purpose, but at Puma, Punku in the Bolivian highlands, the stones themselves scream of a violent, forgotten end. This site, part of the greater Tiwanaku complex near the shores of Lake Titicaca, looks less like an ancient ruin and more like a celestial factory hit by a bomb. The ground is littered with hundreds of massive stone blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, as if a gargantuan set of building blocks was dropped from a great height. These are not rough boulders, they are intricately carved architectural components made from andesite and diorite, two of the hardest stones on Earth. And it is the carving that sends a shiver down the spine of anyone who sees it. The surfaces are flawlessly smooth, with perfect, razor-sharp right angles that look as if they were cut by a diamond saw. There are precise, cylindrical drill holes bored straight through solid stone, and complex notches and channels that look engineered for interlocking with other pieces, like parts of a giant stone puzzle. This is a level of precision that feels anachronistic, almost machine-like in its perfection. Mainstream archaeology places Puma Punku within the Tiwanaku culture, which flourished between 500 and 1,000 years after the Common Era. The official explanation is that these master craftsmen used simple stone hammers, bronze tools, and patient abrasion with sand and water to achieve these results. They point to the nearby quarries and the sheer force of dedicated, skilled labor over generations. Yet, standing before a block with a perfect T-shaped slot or a series of identical millimeter-precise grooves, it is difficult to silence a nagging question. How do you achieve such immaculate, standardized geometry with handheld tools? The stone is brutally hard, and the consistency across dozens of shattered pieces suggests a method beyond hammering and grinding. This has led to more speculative theories. Could the builders have possessed a lost technology, perhaps a plant-based chemical agent that could temporarily soften the stone, allowing them to mold it like clay? Or did they use advanced tools, machines, or techniques that have left no trace in the archaeological record? The most haunting idea is that these blocks were prefabricated with such precision that they could be shipped and assembled elsewhere, a concept that feels jarringly modern. The chaos of the site adds a profound layer of mystery. This was not a place slowly reclaimed by nature. It appears to have been catastrophically destroyed in a single apocalyptic event. The massive blocks are scattered, some thrown great distances, others embedded deep in the earth at strange angles. The scene suggests a force of unimaginable power, a colossal flood from Lake Titicaca, or a seismic event so violent it lifted and shattered this stone city like a child's toy. This duality is what makes Puma Punku so compelling and unsettling. It combines the cold, precise logic of advanced engineering with the raw, chaotic violence of a natural disaster. It feels like stumbling upon the blueprint for a skyscraper scattered across a tornado-stricken field. The stones hold a secret of method in their perfect cuts and a secret of fate in their shattered disorder, a silent testament to a civilization that could move mountains but could not withstand the fury of the earth it mastered. The shattered precision of Puma Punku speaks of a civilization interrupted, but one ruler planned for an eternity that would never be disturbed. In central China, beneath a quiet, vegetation-covered mound, lies what may be the most spectacular unopened treasure chest in human history. This is the tomb of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor who unified China in 221 before the Common Era. The world knows the outer perimeter of this complex from a staggering discovery in 1974, when farmers digging a well unearthed a single clay head. That head belonged to one of over 8,000 life-sized terracotta warriors, an entire army of infantry, archers, charioteers, and cavalrymen, each with unique facial features, standing in battle formation to guard their emperor's eternal rest. Yet this vast, silent legion is merely the outer guard, the sentinels posted in the anterooms of a mystery that remains sealed. Ancient historians, writing a century after the emperor's death, describe the tomb's interior in terms that sound like legend. They wrote of a subterranean palace with a ceiling inlaid with pearls to replicate the constellations, and a landscape below with model palaces, towers, and flowing rivers of shimmering mercury, simulating the great rivers of China. The accounts mention ingenious crossbow traps set to fire automatically at any intruder, and warnings that the tomb was filled with deadly quantities of the toxic liquid metal. For centuries, these descriptions were dismissed as fanciful myth. Then, modern science intervened. Geophysical surveys of the tomb mound, which remains unexcavated, have repeatedly detected unusually high concentrations of mercury in the soil. The pattern of this mercury anomaly curiously mirrors the layout of China's major rivers. This scientific corroboration of a 2,000-year-old text is utterly chilling. It means the ancient chroniclers were likely reporting facts, and the stories of a mercury-fueled underground universe may be true. This presents a profound dilemma. The Chinese government has steadfastly refused to allow full-scale excavation, citing paramount preservation concerns. Current technology may not be able to safely handle the volatile environment inside, especially the potential lakes or rivers of mercury, whose fumes would be instantly lethal. There is also the fear that exposure to air could rapidly destroy organic treasures like silks, lacquerware, or even the emperor's own remains, reducing them to dust in moments. So the tomb sits, a perfect time capsule from 210 before the Common Era. Within its sealed chambers could lie not just unimaginable wealth in gold and jade, but the lost libraries of pre-unified China, samples of now extinct plants and animals, and technological marvels that would rewrite our understanding of Qin dynasty engineering. The greatest secret it guards, however, is the man himself. Qin Shi Huang was obsessed with immortality, sending expeditions to find the elixir of life and consuming mercury pills in the belief they would prolong his existence, a potion that likely contributed to his death. His tomb was his backup plan, a microcosmic empire where his power would continue forever. To open it would be to confront the ultimate ambition of a ruler who shaped a nation, and to see what he believed was necessary to rule for all eternity. It is the ultimate archaeological prize, and its enduring mystery is a testament to a terrifying truth. Sometimes the past is best preserved by leaving it completely and forever alone. While Qin Shi Huang's tomb holds its secrets by design, other artifacts keep their mysteries through sheer, silent presence. Deep in the humid jungles and river deltas of southern Costa Rica, the earth holds perfectly round secrets. Scattered across the Diquis Delta are hundreds of stone spheres, ranging from the size of a bowling ball to colossal orbs over 6 feet in diameter and weighing more than 15 tons. They are not merely roundish boulders, but objects of astonishing geometric perfection, their surfaces smooth to a fine, almost artificial finish. They were crafted by the pre-Columbian Diquis culture, a society that flourished from around 800 to 1500 Common Era, yet left no written record to explain their most enduring creations. The first modern discovery came in the 1930s as the United Fruit Company cleared vast tracts of jungle for banana plantations. Bulldozers and workers began uncovering these strange orbs, some partially buried, others resting in the open. In their haste to cultivate the land, many spheres were dynamited, rolled aside with heavy machinery, or looted, forever severing them from their original placements and context. This destruction created a second, more profound layer of mystery, because we may never know how they were originally arranged. The most compelling theories about their purpose emerge from the few clusters found intact. Some spheres were positioned in alignments, forming straight lines, triangles, or parabolas leading to important structures. This suggests they could have been astronomical markers, their arrangements mapping celestial events or acting as a giant calendar stone. Others believe they were potent status symbols, with the size and number of spheres a family owned denoting their power and lineage, placed outside dwellings as statements of authority. Perhaps the most poetic idea is that they were physical representations of constellations or models of celestial bodies, creating a map of the cosmos here on Earth. Yet the how is as puzzling as the why. How did a culture without metal tools, using only stone hammers and abrasives, achieve such flawless spherical symmetry and consistent size across hundreds of examples? The stone itself, a hard granodiorite, was likely sourced from miles away in the foothills. The process likely involved a combination of techniques, first hammering the raw stone into a rough sphere, then patiently grinding it with sand and water over what must have been generations for the largest ones. The final polishing would have given them that signature sheen, but the consistency is what baffles engineers, suggesting a transmitted and refined technique, a school of stone shaping mastered over centuries. They are not tools, not weapons, not vessels, they are pure form. In a world of angular pyramids and carved facades, the Diquis chose the sphere, the most perfect and universal shape. Each one is a silent planet, a world unto itself, representing a civilization that expressed its deepest beliefs not in towering monuments, but in the quiet, profound perfection of the circle. They are a reminder that sometimes mystery is not about complexity, but about simplicity so perfect it feels impossible. The perfect stone spheres of Costa Rica represent a mystery of form, but off the coast of India, a legend speaks of an entire kingdom lost to formlessness, to the sea itself. Hindu sacred texts like the Mahabharata and the Puranas describe in vivid detail the city of Dwarka, the dazzling capital of Lord Krishna. They tell of a metropolis of unparalleled splendor, with palaces made of crystal and silver, opulent gardens, and a grand harbor filled with ships from distant lands. The story concludes with a profound tragedy. Upon Krishna's departure from the earthly realm, the entire city was swallowed by the ocean in a single day, vanishing beneath the waves as if it had never been. For millennia, this was considered pure mythology, a beautiful allegory for the impermanence of all worldly things. Then, in the late 20th century, marine archaeologists began to look. What they found off the coast of modern-day Dwarka in Gujarat has blurred the line between scripture and history. Scattered across the seabed, at depths ranging from 20 to over 100 feet, lie the unmistakable remnants of a sunken settlement. They have uncovered massive stone blocks, some weighing hundreds of kilograms, arranged in what appear to be fortification walls. They have found stone anchors, pillars, and a variety of pottery shards. Most compellingly, sonar surveys have mapped out what look like the foundations of large structures and a possible ancient harbor layout. The artifacts recovered from the site have been scientifically dated, and they point to a timeline that is electrifying. The oldest materials, including pottery styles and stone tools, date back over 3,500 years to a period that aligns with the late phase of the Indus Valley or Harappan civilization. This was not some small fishing village. The scale of the submerged ruins suggests a major port city, a hub of maritime trade that would have been a powerhouse of its time. So, is this the legendary Dwarka of Krishna? Archaeology cannot prove the existence of a divine figure, but it can corroborate the physical and historical backdrop of a story. The discoveries strongly indicate that a highly advanced coastal settlement did exist here in the distant past, and that it was catastrophically lost to the sea. This aligns perfectly with geological knowledge about changing sea levels. At the end of the last ice age, global sea levels rose dramatically, and this process continued in pulses for thousands of years, slowly drowning coastlines worldwide. A prosperous port city built at the water's edge 3 millennia ago could very well have been gradually inundated by rising tides, or perhaps finished off by a sudden, catastrophic event like a tsunami or a massive storm surge. In the collective memory of the people who survived, this devastating loss of their great city could have been compressed into the story of a single divine day of reckoning. The tale of Dwarka's sinking became a way to explain the unexplainable, to give cosmic meaning to a natural disaster. This convergence is where the mystery holds its deepest power. It suggests that the grand epics of the Mahabharata are not merely fiction, but could be woven from threads of historical truth, oral histories passed down for generations that preserved the memory of real places, real kingdoms, and real cataclysms. The stones on the ocean floor are silent, but they speak in a language that resonates with the verses of ancient texts, reminding us that sometimes the most enduring myths are maps to a forgotten reality. The legend of Dwarka is a story reclaimed by the sea, but in a quiet Bosnian valley, a man looked at a hill and saw a story he believed had been stolen from the world. In the town of Visoko, a cluster of forested hills rise from the landscape in distinct, symmetrical shapes. To most, they are simply hills, but to amateur archaeologist Semir Osmanagic, they are the lost pyramids of a forgotten super-civilization. He calls the largest the Pyramid of the Sun, claiming it dwarfs the Great Pyramid of Giza, and asserts that it, along with nearby pyramids of the Moon and Dragon, were constructed over 12,000 years ago by an advanced culture. His evidence, presented in books and documentaries, includes the hill's geometric alignment with cardinal points, surface layers of concrete-like material, and a network of underground tunnels he calls Ravni. For Osmanagic and his followers, this is a discovery that rewrites human history, placing a sophisticated global culture in prehistoric Europe. Mainstream science, however, tells a very different story. Geologists from across Europe have examined the site and are unequivocal. The hills are natural formations, a common geological feature known as flatirons, created by the erosion of ancient sedimentary layers. The so-called concrete is natural conglomerate rock, and the tunnel network shows no signs of being man-made. Every major archaeological institution has dismissed the pyramid claims as pseudoscience, a case of seeing patterns in natural landforms. Yet, this is where the real mystery begins. Why, in the face of near-universal scientific rejection, does the idea of the Bosnian pyramids persist with such vigor? Why do thousands of volunteers from around the world travel to Visoko each year to dig, believing they are uncovering a hidden truth? The answer lies less in the soil and more in the human heart. The theory taps into a powerful, almost romantic desire to discover a hidden, glorious past that conventional history has overlooked. It offers a narrative of a wise, ancient civilization that possessed profound knowledge, a story that feels more exciting than the slow, meticulous grind of academic archaeology. For a post-war Bosnia seeking identity and hope, the idea of hosting the world's oldest pyramids carries a potent sense of pride and potential. The controversy itself becomes a modern archaeological phenomenon, a clash between institutional authority and populist belief. It raises a compelling question about who gets to write our history and why we are so drawn to narratives that promise to append everything we think we know. The Bosnian pyramids may be made of natural rock, but the belief in them is built from something just as foundational: our enduring need to find wonder and meaning hidden in the plain sight of the ordinary world. The silent Moai of Easter Island are not the only voices from its past that we cannot hear. Scattered across museums in the world are a few dozen fragile wooden tablets, staffs, and ornaments, all inscribed with a flowing, beautiful script known as Rongorongo. To look at these glyphs is to feel a particular kind of ache, for this is one of the very few times in all of human history that a system of writing was invented completely independently, untouched by the influence of Egypt, Mesopotamia, or China. The symbols are elegant and complex, a mix of stylized human figures, plants, animals, and geometric forms, all arranged in a unique reverse boustrophedon pattern. This means the lines of text do not simply run left to right, but rather you read one line left to right, then physically turn the tablet upside down to read the next line, a method found nowhere else. This sophistication suggests it was a fully developed script, a true writing system capable of recording language. But what does it say? The question is a haunting one because the key was violently destroyed. In the 1860s, Peruvian slave raiders descended on the already devastated island and carried off around half of the surviving population, including, it is believed, the last individuals who could read and write Rongorongo. This was a cultural decapitation. When the tablets were later discovered by missionaries who viewed them as pagan artifacts, many were burned. Only about 24 authentic objects survive. So we are left with the physical script, but no Rosetta Stone, no bilingual text to provide a bridge. Linguists have been trying to crack this code for over a century with little success. The central debate is fundamental. Is Rongorongo true writing, or is it proto-writing? A true script represents the sounds or words of a spoken language, while proto-writing is more like a sophisticated mnemonic device, a set of symbols that would help a trained priest or storyteller recall a narrative, but could not be read verbatim by just anyone. Some researchers see patterns that suggest genealogical records, perhaps listing chiefs and their lineages. Others, noting the birdmen and ceremonial objects depicted, believe the tablets are ritual texts, prayers or chants used in the island's unique birdman cult or ancestor worship. A few even propose they are astronomical calendars, tracking the cycles of the moon and stars. Without the key, every theory remains a guess. The tragedy is that this script could tell us everything the silent Moai cannot. It could reveal the names of the sculptors, the prayers spoken as a statue was raised, the reasons for the island's civil war, and the true stories behind the legends of the long-eared and short-eared peoples. It is the diary of a lost civilization, written in a hand we can see but a language we can no longer understand. Each fragile tablet is a library of unreadable books, a final message from a people who carved their history in wood, only to have it taken by fire and time. Rongorongo's silent symbols are a language lost to violence, but another form of ancient communication was written directly into the earth, meant to be read by the sun itself. In a quiet field near the town of Göbekli in Germany, a simple pattern of concentric circles discovered from aerial photography in 1991 rewrote our understanding of Neolithic Europe. This is the Göbekli Circle, a structure dating to 4,900 years before the Common Era, making it one of the oldest known solar observatories on the planet. It is a monument of elegant, stark simplicity. Imagine a wide, circular ditch about 216 feet across, surrounded by an inner wooden palisade. This wooden wall had 3 gates, one to the north, one to the southeast, and one to the southwest. It was this alignment that revealed the circle's profound secret. On the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, an observer standing at the center of the circle would watch the sun rise directly through the southeastern gate, and then, hours later, set perfectly through the southwestern gate. The same precise alignment worked for the summer solstice sunrise and sunset. This was not a chance arrangement. This was a carefully engineered instrument, a giant calendar and temple built from earth and timber. Its discovery sent a shockwave through archaeology, for it proved that the early farming communities of Central Europe, nearly 7,000 years ago, possessed a sophisticated, precise understanding of the solar cycle. This was millennia before Stonehenge's stones were raised, over 2,000 years before the Great Pyramid of Giza was even a concept. These were not primitive people simply struggling to survive. They were astronomers, tracking the heavens with a clarity that allowed them to mark the year's most critical turning points. The purpose was almost certainly a fusion of the practical and the sacred. For an agricultural society, knowing the exact date of the winter solstice was a matter of survival. It marked the sun's rebirth, the promise that the days would grow longer again, that the cold would recede, and that the cycle of planting and harvest could continue. But the Göbekli Circle was more than a farmer's almanac. The structure itself, with its enclosed, sacred space and its gates aligned to cosmic events, speaks of profound ritual. It was likely a place where the community gathered to perform ceremonies that connected them directly to the cosmic order, to plead for the sun's return and to celebrate their place within the great cycle of life, death, and rebirth. The simplicity of its design is its greatest power. Unlike the massive stones of later monuments, this was built from materials at hand, wood and earth, yet it encodes a knowledge as advanced as any carved in granite. It stands as a humbling reminder that astronomical genius did not begin with empires, but in the quiet fields of early farmers who looked to the sky, saw a pattern, and built a doorway to meet it. The silent calendars of Göbekli tracked a sun shared by all humanity, but in the parched, wind-scoured deserts of western China, the dry earth gave up bodies that seemed to belong under a different sky entirely. In the Tarim Basin, one of the most inhospitable places on Earth, Chinese archaeologists made a discovery that froze time and shattered assumptions. They uncovered hundreds of mummies so perfectly preserved by the salty, arid sand that their eyelashes, hair, and the intricate patterns on their clothing looked as if they were from yesterday. But these were not yesterday's people. They dated from as early as 1,800 years before the Common Era, over 4,000 years ago. And they looked nothing like the traditional depictions of ancient East Asians. These individuals had long noses, deep-set eyes, and light brown or even blonde hair. They were tall, dressed in finely woven woolen textiles, including striking tartan plaid, and felted hats that would not look out of place in the highlands of Scotland or the steppes of Ukraine. Staring into the face of the so-called Churchenman or the beauty of Lulan is a deeply disorienting experience. It feels like a geographical mistake, as if a page from European prehistory had been torn out and dropped into the heart of Asia. The immediate, haunting question was, who were they and what were they doing here? For decades, the mystery was a subject of intense speculation and sometimes nationalist debate. Recent advances in genetic science have provided stunning answers while deepening the cultural mystery. DNA extracted from these mummies reveals they were not travelers from a distant west, but descendants of an ancient North Eurasian population, with strong genetic links to hunter-gatherers from Siberia and the Caucasus region. They were a branch of humanity that had migrated eastward across the vast steppes during a wetter climatic period, eventually settling in the oasis rivers of the Tarim Basin. They were not just passing through, they built a society there that lasted for centuries. This genetic clarity makes their cultural silence even more profound. We know where they came from, but we have no idea what they called themselves, what language they spoke, or what gods they worshipped. Their material culture is a unique fusion. Their clothing and weaving techniques show clear influences from the West, yet they buried their dead in boat-shaped coffins, a practice not seen elsewhere, covered with cattle hides and marked with ore like poles, as if preparing for a voyage across a river of the dead. They cultivated wheat and millet, herded sheep and cattle, but left behind no large cities, no temples, no written records. Their entire world is contained in their tombs, a silent snapshot of a way of life. Their existence completely rewrites the early story of the region. For a long time, the narrative of Chinese civilization was one of isolated development in the Yellow River Valley. The Tarim mummies prove that this was never true. Millennia before the historical Silk Road connected Rome and Chang'an, there was already a prehistoric web of migration and exchange, a silent highway of people, ideas, and technologies moving across the inner heart of Asia. These tall, light-haired people were not outsiders looking in. They were integral players in this ancient network, living proof that East and West have been connected for far longer than our history books ever recorded. Their ultimate fate is the final layer of the mystery. Sometime after the first millennium before the Common Era, their distinct culture vanishes from the archaeological record. Did they assimilate into the rising powers of the region, like the Tocharian-speaking peoples who later appear in historical texts? Or did a changing climate, as the basin dried further, force them to disperse and abandon their way of life? We may never know. They stand as poignant ghosts of a lost migration, a reminder that the map of the ancient world was drawn not in fixed borders, but in the endless, restless footsteps of humanity. Beneath the quiet streets of a modern Maltese town lies a world turned inside out. The hypogeum of Hal Saflieni is not a ruin built upon the earth, but a sacred space meticulously carved from it, a negative image of a temple. For over 1,000 years, starting around 2,500 years before the Common Era, Neolithic people used stone, antler, and obsidian tools to excavate this three-level labyrinth from the living limestone. It is a staggering inversion, a place where architecture was not constructed upward but dreamed downward. The chambers are not crude caves, they are precise imitations of the massive above-ground megalithic temples found across Malta, complete with carved pillars, arched doorways, and even false ceilings that replicate the corbelled stonework of their sunlit counterparts. This was a deliberate mirroring, a bringing of the sacred architectural forms into the womb of the earth itself. The most profound mystery, however, is not just in its shape but in its sound. Deep within the complex lies a small, oval chamber known as the Oracle Room. Speak here and your voice is transformed. Certain frequencies, particularly male voices chanting or drumming, produce a powerful, bone-rattling resonance that vibrates through the entire chamber and echoes through the connecting passages. This is not a subtle acoustic effect, it is an overwhelming physical experience. Archaeoacoustic studies confirm the space was intentionally engineered for this phenomenon. What was its purpose? The prevailing theory is both spiritual and psychological. This resonant sound could induce altered states of consciousness, a trance-like condition that Neolithic priests or worshippers might have used to communicate with ancestors or deities. In the flickering torchlight, with the very stone humming around you, the boundary between worlds would feel paper-thin. Yet this was also unequivocally a place of the dead. The remains of over 7,000 individuals were discovered here, a number so vast it suggests the hypogeum served as a communal tomb for generations. This intertwining is the core of its mystery. It was not solely a tomb nor solely a temple, but a profound fusion of the two. The rituals likely involved a journey, both physical and metaphysical. The living would descend, perhaps participating in sonic ceremonies in the Oracle Room to bridge the gap to the spirit realm, then deposit their dead in the deepest, most silent chambers, returning their loved ones to the ancestral collective within the earth. The hypogeum represents a complete cosmology in stone, a belief system where death was not an end, but a transition facilitated by architecture, ritual, and the very vibration of sound. To stand in its resonant silence today is to feel the echo of a civilization that understood the power of the underground and used it to map the landscape of the afterlife. The profound silence of the hypogeum was carved by human hands, but the sea sometimes creates its own perfect illusions. In the clear, turquoise waters off the coast of Bimini, the ocean floor presents a puzzle that looks for all the world like a road to nowhere. Lying in just 20 feet of water, a half-mile-long formation of rectangular limestone blocks stretches across the sandy bottom, its edges appearing unnaturally straight, its layout suspiciously orderly. From above, it resembles a submerged highway, a paved causeway leading from the open sea toward the island, then abruptly stopping. The moment this Bimini road was discovered in the 1960s, it sent a shockwave through the community of alternative history. Here, in the heart of the legendary Bermuda Triangle, was what many believed to be the smoking gun, physical proof of a lost civilization, perhaps even a remnant of the fabled Atlantis itself. The imagery was irresistible, a sunken road waiting for travelers who would never return. Geologists, however, tell a different yet equally fascinating story. The formation is composed of beak rock, a type of sandstone that forms naturally along tropical coastlines when sand and shell fragments cement together with calcium carbonate, essentially creating a natural concrete. As this rock layer forms and is later exposed by shifting sea levels and erosion, it often fractures along straight lines and right angles due to internal stress, a process known as jointing. The blocks of the Bimini Road, they argue, are a textbook example of this perfectly natural phenomenon, a quirk of geology that happens to look remarkably man-made. They point to the block's variable sizes and the lack of any tool marks or mortar as evidence of a natural origin, yet the debate refuses to settle. Proponents of the man-made theory counter with the sheer scale and linear precision of the formation, asking if nature could be so geometrically tidy. They note that some blocks appear stacked and that the overall layout seems too purposeful. This standoff is more than an academic dispute, it is a fundamental clash of perspectives. On one side is the scientific method, which seeks explanations within known natural processes. On the other is a powerful human impulse to see pattern and intention in the world, especially when that pattern lies in a place already thick with legend. The Bimini Road sits at the crossroads of these two ways of seeing. Its location is its own kind of evidence, a psychological clue. Found within the amorphous, mysterious bounds of the Bermuda Triangle, it becomes a tangible anchor for all the area's stories of disappearance and lost worlds. It gives a shape to the mystery, a place to point and say, look, the proof is right there. Whether a natural wonder or a drowned artifact, its true power lies in what it represents, the enduring human desire to find footsteps in places where only the current flows, and to believe that even the deep, silent sea cannot completely erase the maps of the past. The sea can create illusions of lost roads, but on the wind-swept tip of Newfoundland, the ground holds the undeniable imprint of a real and startling arrival. At Elant's Aux Meadows, the sod hides the ghost of a Viking longhouse. This cluster of low, grassy mounds, excavated in the 1960s, is the only confirmed Norse settlement in North America. Carbon dating places it firmly around 1,000 years after the Common Era, a full 5 centuries before Columbus sailed. The discovery was monumental, proving the sagas of Leif Erikson were not mere legend but history. Here, Norse explorers stepped onto a continent they called Vinland. They built sturdy timber and sod buildings, forged iron in a small smithy using local bog ore, and repaired their ships. This was a base camp, a gateway to a new world brimming with timber and resources scarce in Greenland and Iceland. Yet, within just a few decades, perhaps as little as a single generation, they packed their belongings, boarded their ships, and sailed away for good. The settlement was abandoned, leaving only whispers in the earth. This is where the deeper mystery begins. We know who they were and when they came. The profound puzzle is why they left and why this fleeting contact never blossomed into something permanent. The Norse were master colonizers, having successfully settled Iceland and Greenland. Why did Vinland fail? The sagas hint at one answer: skirmishes with the indigenous peoples they called Skraelings. These encounters, likely with the Beothuk or Dorset cultures, are described as increasingly hostile. For a small group of Norse far from reinforcements, even limited conflict could have made the cost of staying too high. The environment itself, while rich in some ways, presented a brutal challenge. Newfoundland winters are harsh, and the shorter growing season may have made it difficult to establish the kind of farm-based economy they relied on back in Greenland. But perhaps the most compelling reason lies not in Vinland, but in the thread that connected it to the wider Norse world, Greenland. By the start of the 12th century, the Greenland colonies themselves were beginning to struggle. A cooling climate, soil erosion from overgrazing, and the loss of vital trade connections made life increasingly precarious. The distant outpost at Elant's Ox Meadows, meant to be a lifeline, may have simply become unsustainable to support from a homeland that was itself fighting for survival. The political will to maintain a dangerous, far-flung settlement evaporated. So Elant's Ox Meadows stands not as a mystery of discovery, but as a haunting mystery of abandonment. It represents a door that was opened, peeked through, and then deliberately closed. It forces us to confront a tantalizing alternate history, a world where European settlement of the Americas began not with conquistadors and caravels in the 15th century, but with Norse traders and farmers in the 11th. What if they had stayed? What if a continuous exchange of goods, ideas, and yes, diseases had begun 500 years earlier? The course of global history would be unrecognizable. The site is a quiet monument to a path not taken, a reminder that contact between worlds is not an inevitable force, but a fragile moment that can be erased by a change in the wind, a shift in priorities, or the simple, daunting weight of isolation. The fragile silence of the Viking longhouse speaks of a world left behind, but in a vault in Stockholm, a book of monstrous size contains a different kind of silence, one filled with a legend of infernal help. The Codex Gigas, or the Devil's Bible, is not merely a manuscript, it is a physical behemoth. Created in the early 13th century at a Benedictine monastery in Bohemia, this book is the largest surviving medieval manuscript in the world. Its dimensions are staggering. It stands nearly 3 feet tall, 20 inches wide, and almost 9 inches thick, bound in wooden boards covered with leather. To lift it requires 2 people, and its pages, made from the skins of over 160 donkeys, weigh in at 165 pounds. It is a library bound as a single, crushing volume, but its weight is not what gave it its name. That came from a legend born of sheer, incomprehensible effort. The story, written into its own margins by later hands, tells of a monk who broke his monastic vows. His punishment was to be walled up alive, entombed within the monastery itself. In a desperate bargain, the monk promised to create a book containing all human knowledge in a single night, a feat only possible with the aid of the devil. According to the tale, the devil completed the manuscript, and the monk, in gratitude, added a full-page portrait of his benefactor, forever sealing the book's diabolical reputation. The portrait is indeed there, haunting and vivid on page 290. It shows the devil alone in a white landscape, a monstrous figure with clawed hands and feet, a forked tongue, and 2 small red horns dressed only in an ermine loincloth. The image is so striking, so out of place in a sacred text, that it seems to confirm the wild story. Yet, when scientists and historians examine the book itself, a more human, and in many ways more astonishing, truth emerges. The entire manuscript, from the complete Latin Vulgate Bible to historical chronicles, medical works, and exorcism formulas, is written in a single, consistent handwriting. The ink and pigments are uniform throughout. This was not the work of a committee, but of one incredibly disciplined scribe. Modern analysis suggests that writing this book, even without the illuminations, would have taken not one night, but approximately 30 years of continuous daily labor. Imagine the monastic cell, the endless scratching of the quill, the slow, painful progression as the monk's hand cramped and his eyes strained by candlelight. This was a lifetime's penance, not a single night's pact. So why the devilish legend? The answer lies in the psychology of awe. For medieval people, and even for us today, such a monumental, solitary achievement seemed beyond human endurance. It was easier to believe in supernatural intervention than to accept the reality of one man's fanatical, decades-long devotion. The legend provided a simple, thrilling explanation for an act of dedication so profound it defied ordinary understanding. The devil in this reading is not the author, but a metaphor for the obsessive, almost inhuman focus required to complete the task. The true mystery of the Codex Gigas is not whether a demon helped write it, but what drove that one anonymous monk to pour the entirety of his life, his faith, and his atonement into the pages of this gigantic book. It is a monument not to the supernatural, but to the extreme limits of human will, a silent scream of devotion frozen in ink and parchment. The sheer weight of the Codex Gigas speaks of a single monk's obsession, but a farmer's simple shovel in China once struck a find that shattered an entire nation's understanding of its own past. In 1986, in a quiet village in Sichuan province, workers digging clay for bricks uncovered not just earth, but the staring eyes of a forgotten god. This was the beginning of the Sacsayhuamán discovery, a moment that ripped a hole in the standard narrative of Chinese history. Archaeologists who rushed to the site would uncover two vast sacrificial pits, and what they pulled from the earth defied every expectation. Here were not the familiar ritual bronzes of the Shang dynasty, with their intricate Taoti masks and inscriptions. This was a visual language from a different universe. They found dozens of massive bronze masks, some over 4 feet wide, with angular, alien features, exaggerated protruding eyes, and ears that stretched outward like wings. They unearthed a bronze tree that stood over 13 feet tall, its branches adorned with birds and hanging fruit, a cosmic axis reaching for the heavens. And most staggering of all, they revealed a complete bronze statue of a man standing 8 feet tall, his hands held in a ritual gesture, his feet anchored to a base, wearing an ornate robe decorated with dragons and patterns that seemed to writhe with energy. This was not merely art, it was a theology cast in metal. The civilization that created these works flourished along the banks of the Min River over 3,000 years ago. At the same time, the Shang dynasty ruled the Yellow River Valley to the north. Yet the two cultures might as well have existed on different planets. The Sacsayhuamán people left behind no writing, no royal tombs, and not a single mention in the historical records of their northern contemporaries. They were a ghost kingdom, thriving in isolation with a spiritual vision so powerful it demanded expression in gold, jade, and bronze on a colossal scale. The masks with their otherworldly eyes likely represented ancestors or deities, perhaps worn by shamans in ceremonies to bridge the human and spirit worlds. The towering bronze tree is almost certainly a representation of the Fusang, a mythical tree from Chinese legend that connected Earth to the sky, a ladder for divine communication. But the central, haunting question remains: who were they? Genetic studies suggest they were ancestrally related to other populations in the region, but their culture was utterly unique. Some scholars theorize they were the ancient Shu kingdom, mentioned in later fragmentary texts. Others see possible connections to the bronze-working cultures of Southeast Asia. The truth is, they remain a people without a name, known only by the modern village where they were found. Their disappearance around 1100 years before the Common Era is the second great mystery. There is no evidence of invasion or war. Instead, the pits themselves provide a cryptic clue. The thousands of artifacts were not neatly stored but deliberately broken, burned, and then carefully buried in a precise, layered order. This was not a hasty hiding of treasure but a ritual termination. It seems the Sacsayhuamán people, for reasons we can never know, decided to decommission their entire sacred universe. They systematically destroyed their most powerful ritual objects, perhaps to neutralize their spiritual power, and then sealed them in the earth as a final offering. After this act of profound closure, their culture simply fades from the archaeological record. Did they migrate and assimilate elsewhere? Did a catastrophic earthquake or flood disrupt their society and break their spiritual will? We may never learn the reason. The legacy of Sacsayhuamán is a humbling one. For centuries, Chinese civilization was seen as a single river flowing from the Yellow River Valley. This discovery proved it was never one river but many. It revealed a second, brilliant, and completely independent cradle of civilization in the Sichuan Basin, a lost world that developed its own staggering artistic genius in parallel with the Shang. Their silent, staring masks remind us that history is not a single story being told, but a chorus of voices, and sometimes the most powerful ones have been waiting underground for millennia just to be heard. The sea's ability to swallow entire crews without leaving a single clue found its perfect symbol in the late autumn of 1872. The merchant brigantine Mary Celeste was spotted adrift in the calm Atlantic between the Azores and Portugal by the crew of the Dei Gracia. Something was immediately wrong. Her sails were partly set but ragged and loose, and she was yawing strangely. Captain David Morehouse of the Dei Gracia, who knew the Mary Celeste's captain, Benjamin Briggs, personally, grew concerned. After hailing her and receiving no answer, he sent a boarding party over. What they found aboard the 282-ton vessel was a scene of profound and orderly abandonment. The ship was perfectly seaworthy, taking on only a little water, which was normal for a wooden brig of her age. Her cargo of 1,701 barrels of industrial alcohol was intact and secure. There was a 6-month supply of food and fresh water in the stores. The crew's personal belongings, including the captain's navigational instruments and his wife's sewing machine, were still in their quarters. Even the valuables and the ship's papers were left behind, yet not a single soul was on board. The last log entry, dated 10 days earlier, noted nothing amiss. The only lifeboat was gone. It was as if the 10 people aboard Captain Briggs, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and 7 crewmen had simply decided, in a moment of collective panic or calm, to step off the ship into the vast ocean. The mystery was not one of violence but of absence. There were no signs of a struggle, no bloodstains, no evidence of fire or a catastrophic leak. The ship's single lifeboat was missing, suggesting a deliberate, if frantic, abandonment. But why? The most persistent theory involves the cargo. Those barrels of denatured alcohol could have leaked fumes. Perhaps the captain, smelling the potent vapor and fearing an imminent explosion, gave the order to abandon ship with such haste that they forgot to properly secure the tow line to the lifeboat. In a calm sea, the lifeboat may have drifted away, leaving the crew to perish while the Mary Celeste, never exploding, sailed on as a ghost. Another idea points to a sudden, localized waterspout, a tornado over water, that drenched the ship and terrified the crew into thinking she was sinking rapidly. They flee in the lifeboat, only to watch the waterspout dissipate and their perfectly sound ship sail away without them. Piracy was considered, but it made no sense. Pirates would have taken the valuable cargo, the ship's papers, the personal effects. Mutiny seemed unlikely given Captain Briggs' excellent reputation and the presence of his family. The official maritime inquiry at the time could find no answer, and the Dei Gracia's crew, who salvaged the vessel, were viewed with suspicion, though never charged. The Mary Celeste's power lies in its chilling normality. It was not a legendary ghost ship from centuries past, but a modern, documented vessel. Its story presents the ocean not as a realm of monsters, but as a blank, indifferent space where logic can simply stop. It embodies the ultimate maritime fear, that the line between a functioning world and a void can be crossed in a single, inexplicable moment, leaving behind only a ship, a full kettle on the stove, and a silence so complete it becomes a scream. From the ghostly silence of the Mary Celeste to the cosmic ambition of Göbekli Tepe, we have wandered a world written in riddles, and there you have it, 35 ancient and historical places that radiate a deep, compelling mystery. Each site a question mark carved in stone, submerged in water, or lost in legend, stands as a testament to the vast, uncharted territory of our own past. They are not merely ruins, but conversations we are still trying to have across the gulf of centuries. They challenge the neat timelines in our textbooks, forcing us to admit that history is not a closed book with a settled story, but an immense, sprawling puzzle where the most crucial pieces often seem to be missing. These places ignite our imagination precisely because they resist easy answers. They whisper of possibilities that stretch the limits of our understanding, hinting at truths that can feel stranger than any fiction-advanced knowledge lost to time. Civilizations that rose and fell without a whisper, and moments of contact or catastrophe that altered the human story in ways we are only beginning to glimpse. This journey reminds us that wonder is not a childish emotion, but the essential fuel for discovery. It is the feeling that arises when we stand before the impossible precision of Sacsayhuamán, or gaze into the alien eyes of a Sacsayhuamán mask and realize our ancestors were far more complex, creative, and mysterious than we often give them credit for. So we turn the question to you: which of these 35 mysteries captured your imagination the most? Was it the deliberate burial of Göbekli Tepe, the sunken roads of Bimini, or the silent, waiting tomb of China's first emperor? Let us know in the comments below. We would love to hear which enigma resonates with you. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss our next exploration into history's greatest enigmas. There are always more stories waiting just beneath the surface. Until